With this practice, we explore Warrior Two. Now, Warrior Two is really interesting because we've got one leg doing one thing, another leg doing another thing, and there's different things going on in the SI area and through the hip rotators. And it can be very complex and confusing in some cases and can correlate to issues in the SI joints and the spine and the knees and a whole host of stuff further up the chain in the neck and the jaw. So with this practice, I want to explore Warrior Two and then get into some component movement to then bring you back to Warrior Two to see if we can help Warrior Two come more alive, have it be really fruitful and awesome for your practice, and really see how amazing it actually is. All right, so we're going to explore with a spinal strip or another rolled mat, or even if you have a pool noodle, and then a block. Now this is a thinner block than the wood blocks I typically use. You can use a cork or a wood, whatever block, later in the practice, okay? So let's begin coming into your Warrior Two. And you're gonna take your legs wide. However you come into your Warrior Two. So the way that I do this is I rotate one leg, I rotate the back leg. Lots of people don't rotate this back leg. You take your stance, the distance that makes the most sense for you. I love keeping this pelvis level and having the movement really about the legs and the pelvis, and then the legs, arms come out into our Warrior Two. Yeah. So this is where I get to play. You can choose whether you want heel to heel or heel to mid-arch, in the middle of the arch, or really whatever, wherever that placement is. Your expression of your Warrior Two and how those legs are moving in the pelvis. And then come on up. All right, now we're gonna come to the floor. Grab hold of your rolled mat or maybe a folded blanket that's about this width, and then come on into this position here, placing it just at the base of the bottom of the breastbone on the back side. If you wear a bra, it's right at the bra strap. Here we call T7, T8. And we get to just rest back here and breathe and settle. And with your legs, you can bring them into Baddha Konasana or leave them up bent, or you can straighten them out. I want you to choose the one that feels the best for you. I'm going to keep mine bent here. And bring awareness to how your breath is in your body, but also for where these parts are. Like, where's your pelvis? Like, feel where that is, and feel where your legs are. And then notice your ribs. I find that in the practice, we can focus a lot on sensation, which is really good. We can focus lots on symptom, which is really good. I certainly do. I help people become aware of things like bracing and gripping, and also when there's ease and freedom and all that yumminess present. But I also want you to bring online just the actual segment, like your bone of your leg, like your legs and your pelvis and your rib cage. Can you feel those in your mind's eye? Can you get a sense of them taking up space? Now, the whole time we do this practice, like any time, we're going to come off this now, is you're moving in a range that doesn't increase your pain. You're moving in a range that we're really focusing on your movement components so that you really get a clarity and an awareness of how things are moving or not moving. Okay, let's come back into our Warrior Two. So from here, we're going to rotate the leg bone in the pelvis, and then move ourselves down into our Warrior Two. It's so interesting, I find, when I work up and through the thoracic spine and how that changes what goes on in through the hips. It's so curious. I'm sure it has nothing to do with working on the computer. Nothing at all with that, right? Okay, come on up. Lovely. And then we're going to come back down to the floor. And we're going to move into a position of bringing our ankle to the knee. Now with this one, we come into this, what we call figure four or thread the needle sometimes. And as I mentioned in other videos a lot, is we want to focus in on how that leg bone moves in the pelvis. Because so often people just slide that pelvis over. It's like they're not aware of their pelvis in space. Or they're not aware that the aim here is to rotate that leg bone in the socket, right? And when we focus on just moving, or if we don't focus, we just shift the pelvis, now we're moving between the pelvis and the ribs, and that's a big reason, or at least a correlation for SI and piriformis and spinal stuff. Whereas if we can reduce that compensation and move that leg bone in the hip socket, right, like so, things change dramatically. Whether it's SI, QL, psoas, really, really huge stuff. Okay, so from here now, let's move that leg bone in the hip socket. This is all soft in the front here. So as I move away, what I mean by that is that your hip flexor does not drive the movement away, of your leg away from your belly. Yeah? Good job. All right, and then bring that down. And then other side. Move that leg bone in the hip socket. Now we're going to take this into a wee twist. So what becomes interesting here is we're in the transverse or rotational plane, so that pelvis is moving around and we're moving into a twist. Your leg bone is staying in the exact orientation of where it started. So it's not falling inward like so. And so what we're playing with is these hip flexors, again, they don't have to get involved. What's controlling the movement downward is your abdomen. So as you move past that vertical line and you're going into a twist, those obliques are kind of involved in the movement. So you don't need to like willfully engage them. Just notice how they start to tune in, or maybe they're not tuning in, right? Which will give you some insight about maybe what's contributing to some of the things that you're experiencing. Yeah? Okay, good. Let's go back to the other side. But the first cue is just to notice, do your hip flexors want to kick in, and can you move only as far as those hip flexors don't do that? Yeah? And then that will give an opportunity to your abdomen to say, oh, you want me to do what? And then it will start to come online a bit more. That's what's so cool about reducing compensation patterns, is muscle groups that are meant to do their job now say, oh, you want me to be involved. Now that the compensation is reduced, it's reducing or it's going away. Yeah, and so then you'll feel areas of your body you might not have felt for a long time, and then you can feel a bit of some workout soreness after the fact. But that's just because they're coming back online again. Okay, now from there, let's come into our warrior two. And let's see how that moves. Oh, that's a lot different here for me. Okay? Can you see that with doing those movements there, and how I'm just coming a lot more into warrior two. So the depth of my position, as you can see on this video, didn't come because I pushed it. It became because I improved my function. So the form of my pose improved because my function improved. That's what's so cool about doing these videos here, is that you can really see the shift, yeah? Lovely. Okay, and then come back up. All right, let's come into goddess pose now. So from here, take those legs wide, rotate the leg bones, and let's take a wee bit of a sink down. Think hips, knees, ankles. Good, and just be here. And bring the arms up and reach the arms back a little bit behind you towards the wall. Yeah. And then bring the hands down and press those leg bones into the hands. Feel the bottoms of your feet, center of the heel, ball of the foot, base of the pinky toe. And if you notice your knees are sort of saying, hey, then come up a little bit. Paying attention to some of the nuance enables you not to hear the scream. Yeah, nuance is really, really vital. It's the whisper or the yellow lights. Good, and then come back up. All right, now from here, let's set ourselves up into warrior two. Let's see if that's changed anything. Oh, isn't that fascinating? Yeah, and so it just becomes easier to allow the movement. Good, and then come back up. Not surprising, right? But it's still fun to notice. Notice what's possible compared to when I started. Okay, now come back up. All right, so we're gonna take this block and we're gonna take it against the wall. And here, I'm gonna set myself up to my warrior 2, but it's not into the one I just did, a little bit of a less one, because now I'm pressing this leg into the block. So you'll see the block is close to my hip. It's not at the knee. It's about midway through the thigh here. We're gonna come into our warrior 2, holding the block, and then come down into what looks a bit like an extended side angle, and then from here, come back the other way. Now, what you get to do is maintain the block against the wall. So if that happens, then you know that happened. So that initially is what will occur for people. Now, when I was teaching a lot of group classes in small groups, when I was working with lots of people, helping them recover from pain, we would do this quite a bit. And there were always some people who could not get into this position at all. So watch what I'm going to do with the back leg. So we then came back more into a position like this. We changed up the orientation between the leg and the pelvis and the hip. So this is where they were. Then, as they came back week after week to class, they were able to bring that leg back more and more and more and more and more and more. So they were just here. So you might be further out with that leg. You might be just right here and staying here and not doing the movement. Or you might be here and then slowly but surely adding the arms up. Adding the arms up. So you decide what makes the most sense, yeah? So whether you're coming down or whether you're just staying, you choose, right? You can play around with all these different orientations based off of what you're feeling in your own body, based off of the awareness you have in your body and the clarity that you're gaining about what's working and what's not working, yeah? Watching the pelvis. And just being, so maybe you're just staying right here. There might be a little bit of a shake in your leg. Notice if you want to grip your toes, and then you can play around with where your arms are, yeah? But just give yourself the chance, tone the volume down a little bit, or the speed of how you're moving, so you can actually tune into what's working and what's not working, gaining that clarity, so you can actually solve the problem that is, yeah? And then you'll have more and more and more connection with your body and how it feels. So come away from that and now notice what you're feeling. If the strain and the tension went up, chances are you went a little bit too far, but maybe because it was new, you were just kind of unraveling where that point was, yeah? Okay, so come back to your warrior 2, and now notice. That feels a lot more solid. Good, and then other side. Brilliant. Okay, and then come up. All right, and be in your standing position now. What does this feel like? What's this experience? And notice the inner urging of what you want to do next. So is it another activity? Is it more of a practice? Is it going for a meal or a coffee or a whatever? What is it that your body is asking of you? And then either do that or take time for it later on. But whatever it is that you do, you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow. Mwah. Take good care.